The Saline Solution presents Naked, the podcast series that pairs it all. Real life experiences, how they were dealt with, and the lessons learned. Facing the person in the mirror always makes us check ourselves, accept our past, and guides us to make the decisions that are best for our peace of mind. Are you naked? Here's your host, Saline Griffith. This podcast is for adults 18 years and over.
Hi y'all, welcome to episode 5 of the Naked Podcast. It's called Broque or Broque. We're talking about financial matters today, and of course we know we're going through a pandemic, or just reeling off of a pandemic, and it affected us globally in a very, very economic way, and of course we know all other ways as well, socially as well. So many other ways that this pandemic has affected us, both good and bad. But we're talking about the financial impact that it has had on us throughout those 2 years and going forward. And I have 2 experts here with me today. You know, I love when I get good guests on this podcast, and I always have good guests. So before I move forward to my guests, I just want to say how beautiful this Sunday is. Birds are chirping outside because we are in Villa de Amaya, the house in the bush, down here in Freeport. Beautiful ambience, the weather is perfect, and thanks to Villa de Amaya for, of course, letting us use the space to get naked. I have with me on set Madienne Mahon, insurance agent, and beautiful soul indeed. And via Zoom, we have Philip Williams, better known as Phil, of Fill the Gap. Pretty certain you would have seen Phil on Instagram and on his website, the podcast that he has, and I'm sure on other streaming sites, where Phil will fill us in. You see what I did there? He will fill us in on where we can find him as well. But Phil is a financial expert, and I deliberately chose these 2 persons to have this conversation with, because following on social media, following the way that they impart information and knowledge and stuff like that, it hit home for me. It's very real, and I have benefited from some of the stuff that they've shared so far. So without further ado, I will welcome our guest, Madienne Mahon. Hi, darling. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, gosh, I'm so happy to have
Such
you.
an honor.
And to fill the gap. Phil, thank you for joining us and taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. So I'll have Madienne introduce herself to us first in her capacity as an insurance agent.
Well, I simply tell people I sell insurance. I used to have all kinds of fancy names and big words and so on, because my formal training is in economics and management. But after 25 years of sales, it has come down to my skill is really convincing people to put themselves first, to put their families first, and to learn to prioritize what's important and therefore which direction to send their money into, to protect themselves and to cater for life's unforeseen, which COVID was the biggest unforeseen that we've ever had. So that's basically what I do.
Great stuff. Great stuff, and you do it so well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Phil is our the expert, Saline. Phil is our financial expert who really hits us the facts when it comes to figures and stuff. So Phil, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, so very simple. I am Phil, and I work for, most of my career has been in investment. So I work for an investment company in Trinidad and Tobago. And during my time there, I recognized that financial terms or just things that happen in the economy can be intimidating. So people tend to shy away or avoid or just think that their financial situation will somehow just get better. So what I do is really help people make smarter decisions with their money by providing information that would really help them and really link how things that happen in the economy that seem complex, how it impacts your personal finances. And that's really what Fill the Gap is about.
Love that. I really, really love that. Now, I have a story for you all. You know, I always want to tell people my business. So,
Go right ahead.
So back in 2016, I lost my job. it wasn't a cushy job, but it was enough for me to get by and to cover my living expenses and that of the kids and that kind of thing. But when I lost the job, I literally lost all the air in my body because I'm like, where the ass I would do now? You know, I wasn't out of a job for very long. I always had the passion to be in media. So coming out of the corporate environment, I used it as an opportunity because I've always been taught, find the good in every situation. So I said, okay, let me see what good is in this. The few months home was real nice. I getting up in the morning, sitting in my porch, having coffee, until I couldn't be in that porch anymore.
You can't afford coffee.
I couldn't afford the house. I had to give up my house. I had to downsize significantly. The kids moved in with their dad. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, this is just 6 months. It's me. I make shit happen. And I said, well, all right, 6 months. That 6 months, we are now in 2022, and the situation has not significantly improved, to be quite honest. People talk about living from paycheck to paycheck. My paycheck is not even enough to cover the month, but I am still happy to an extent because
Your attitude is right.
the attitude is right. Well, you see, there's always good and a little bit of crazy, right? Because I cover my bills.
Thank God.
Thank God. I cover my bills, but I'm not able to have money to save. I'm not able to have money to reinstate my insurance policies that I know is on my mind every day because I know the importance of it. I came from an insurance company as well. So I know the importance of having those types of policies, especially for the children also. They're getting ready for university just now. And I really thank God that their father is able to do right by them now in terms of, you know, the financial aspect, taking care of them basically. And sometimes when I sit down, I say, am I really broke? Because that brokenness cost me a relationship recently too. The man tell me, the man say, you did, wait, I can't remember what he said. Oh, I know it's done. And it's in the past now, correct. But I oftentimes wondered, you know, just you doing what you have to do to get by. And yes, I know what I have to do to improve the quality of my life. I know what I have to do. I also didn't want to leave media because I did get into media. I'm actually surviving on my, what people will call your side hustle now, right? And whilst it's doing well for me, I shouldn't say, well, it's good. It's good. It's not the best. It's not where I was before. And I had to ask myself the question, am I broke? Or am I broke? Because I get by. So what do we call broke? In your opinion, Madienne, what do you call broke?
Well, broke is really a state of being when you can't afford the life you want. But it doesn't mean that you're broken in spirit or broken in possibilities.
Right.
So it's one thing to not have all the money that you would prefer to have, but in your case, you're actually being led to do what's your purpose.
Correct.
And money responds to purpose. So it's really a question of timing.
I like that.
It's a question of being true to you, and
Yes.
it's a question of continuing to stay the course, in spite of the fact that you may be doing no more than just paying bills. Because the trauma of COVID has caused quite a few people not to even be able to survive, and you have.
Yeah.
So yes, you may
Thank
not
God,
have the
truth.
fat savings that you had then, but
Yeah.
you saved for a rainy day, and a rainy day came.
Yeah.
So you survived it. You
Yeah.
used your money to buy an umbrella and keep yourself dry and keep yourself going.
I like that.
Which is a real plus.
Yeah.
A real plus. So you should really pat yourself on the back for doing what you have to do to get through a really challenging time for
It
many
really
people.
was. It really, really was. Because after 2016, and this was December 20, literally 2 weeks before Christmas is when I lost my job. So it really was a tough time. Of course, friends, I have a beautiful tribe. So friends came around and they rallied. In 2017, I kind of wet my feet with doing some, with a television show, you know, doing some marketing and stuff for them. And I said, hey, I could do this. Then I went into studying media and communication. So that now, and I know
You used your
myself.
time well.
I know myself. I kept saying I'm going to leave the job and switch because I did have the plan to switch careers. And
Had you not lost your job, you may not
Thank
have
you.
left.
Because God knows me. He said, oh, God, you look how long you're saying this and you keep going and going and going. And this is not what you like to do. I was almost 40. And I said, by the time I turn 40, I need to make some significant changes. Not realizing the significant changes were really going to literally shake my foundation. But then it really built me up. I saw me. I saw the resilience. And I said I was not going to cry this episode, so I'm not going to do that today. But I saw the resilience, the things that we talk about and the words that we use to label ourselves sometimes. I saw it. They actually manifested themselves and reminded me of who I am.
Yes, and sometimes being in corporate Trinidad or corporate America, wherever in the world you work, it lulls you into a false sense of comfort that you feel will continue forever.
Right.
As long as you continue to do the job. If the company is a solid one, you think the company will be open for ad infinitum, and that's not always the case.
Right.
And you tend to not look outside of that for what else there is in you to
So
bring
true,
out.
huh?
Because you're paying
run
your
of the
bills,
mill,
you
you're
can
doing
afford
the
to
run
go
of
to
the
a
mill.
restaurant, you could buy a nice car, you could pay, everything is there.
Yeah.
And you tend to think that's because of you, but it's really because you're connected to an entity that continues
Correct.
to. And if you're not connected to that entity, you can stand on your feet if you're given the opportunity.
That is so true. Phil, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot was said, but my thoughts on what Broque is, or just everything that was said.
Broke. What is your idea of broke?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was listening. A lot of times people think that they're really doing terrible with money and really badly because of the situation they're in, but when in fact they're actually doing quite well. And it's difficult to take a step back and say, listen, these are the things that I actually am making the right decision on. So I sat and I listened to you, and a lot of times people are not honest. So for you to come out and share how you shared, I appreciate that. And people will appreciate that. Broke, to me, yes, you're in a financial situation where you can't, you're just making ends meet.
Right.
Month to month is a problem. But there may be that person who they save, they have X amount of money, they have the insurance, and they can't do the things that they really want to do, but they're making the right financial decisions, and they may say that they're broke. So it is relative, but definitely it is linked to not being in the financial situation or the position that you would like to be in. And sometimes that can be very, very severe, and other times it is not. But it is important that, for everybody, that you recognize where you are at on the journey, and everybody's on a different financial journey. So it's never good. It's never a good thing to be comparing yourself to where other people are, what they have, where they are going. Where they're going, that's fine. They may be going to great places, or they may not. You have to focus on where you are at. And even if your financial situation is not in the best shape, that's okay. You're not alone. There are lots of people that don't confront that, and they probably tell themselves a lie, they tell the public a lie, and that is extremely dangerous. That is broke. You're lying to yourself about your financial situation.
Right.
You're not being honest enough to confront it, and worse, that you're trying to portray an image that really isn't accurate and it's not you. That is broke to me. That's broke. Yeah, that's a sad state. And I'm not saying that to judge anyone, because it's difficult, it's very difficult. Sometimes it just depends on who your friends are, how you perceive yourself, how you think people are looking at you, and it puts a lot of pressure on yourself. So that's where you never want to be, because that's broke. That's where you're going to, and if you stay there,
because it's a sense of living in denial as well. And then if you don't acknowledge it, then what are you going to do what steps are you going to take to start climbing out of the proverbial rut that you're in, And then I always say that sometimes it's about recognizing other parts of yourself as well. You see, oftentimes we've been taught.
We're not only financial beings.
It's about just the money, and it's not. The amount of things that I've learned about myself and other people and life in general, it really helped me to recalibrate. And furthermore, the pandemic, when it happened in 2020, just when I thought, okay, I'm settling into media now, I have looked at all of the possibilities, all of these different things that can happen. Yes, it's happening. I had an interview with someone, because I'm also an event planner. So I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. The whole events industry shut down for 2 years. And that's when I said, no, this is happening for a reason. This isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. So I said, you know what? People could say what they want. I am dealing, this is my situation, I'm dealing with it. I remember a friend of mine, she said to me, you have to go and send out your resumes. You have to go back in corporate. My daughter said to me the other day, you have to go back in corporate and say, I really don't want to. Yeah. I say, I really don't want to, but if I have to, it has to incorporate me being on radio because I really like what I do there. And yeah, so when she was saying to me that you should really go get a job, and then people look at it as, you have all this free time during the day. I said, I would love to use this free time. Trust me. This free time is money that's going down, is literally free. But I don't want it to be free time. I want to be able to utilize my money, my time, and, use my skills. But it's a careful sort of a process that I'm in right now. I'm not just taking any and everything to do. It has to have, it has to be aligned with the purpose.
I don't know if you know that.
Really?
But, I speak to people every day.
Yes.
And so many people are scared, they are traumatized, they don't have the courage to really stand for what they think they should be doing, apart from towing this line that is connected to this paycheck on the 27th of every month. They have giftings, they have all kinds of other things. They're not even happy half the time with the job that they have.
Right.
But because it's a good job, it seems silly to consider leaving it. And the reality of the situation is that how will I pay those bills? But they're not even building alongside them the capacity to eventually have what it takes to comfortably leave the job. Because they don't have the time, they don't have the space, they're too tired. And the mentally, we've been raised in a culture that said to us, once you get a good education and get a good job, you're fine. What more you want again? You want to have purpose too? Really. So it's really, you are really walking in a path that is probably very scary.
It is.
And I'm sure you have nights where you wake up in terror.
Yes.
You say, what am I doing, Lord? But that's the way purpose works.
Yeah.
You have to get past all those hurdles.
Stay the course.
So stay the
course.
And
yeah,
the money comes.
It's really a grueling journey, and I tell you, sometimes I feel as though I say, you're working harder than people who making money, because to keep yourself, to keep the faith intact, to keep that belief in yourself, to know that, okay, you can make it to the next
especially
day.
When you go to a bank and the person at the bank looks at you like you have scurvy because you don't have a fixed income.
But Phil, in terms of that, okay, so we're talking about the personal side of it and feeling good about certain things, but at the end of the day, the bills are there to be paid. You want to make sure that you have a good credit score, and you want to make sure that things are good with you financially. Financial stability, yes, is something that we all desire. What steps would you suggest to someone who doesn't have that financial stability? So, okay, we've gone past the point of acknowledging that this is the situation that I'm in. But what would you suggest in terms of that?
I like to, if I break it down, fill the gap, we look at 5 key pillars. And it's things that I had to apply to my life. So the first thing, I think the first space you need to be in, so we've moved past, okay, you acknowledge this is my situation. But you really have to go a bit deeper, taking a deep dive into exactly what your situation is. And the way to start doing that is really putting pen to paper and writing down all of your expenses. So a lot of times, I ask people, do you have a budget? They don't like the B word. People don't like to live on a budget, but that is the basis, that's the foundation for your financial journey, really. So start off with, budgeting in terms of, you can use an app, you can use an Excel spreadsheet, or you can use pen and paper, but you have to know this is what I'm spending in relation to what's coming into my wallet and what's going out of my wallet. If you don't know that, that is a real problem, because the extra $20 or $10 here and there that you might think, minor matter, small thing, it actually isn't. It isn't. It's a big deal because it's going to add up over time. It's going to add up over weeks. It's going to add up over months. It's going to add up over the year. So you might think, well, yes, I just bought this snack here, or I bought this. I'm certainly not advocating, because when people hear budget, they think it's boring. a boring life or living within your means. But you really have to get to the space where you have the ability to cut back on there's some things that are non-negotiable. You have to pay the rent, you have to pay the utilities, you have to eat, but then there's some things that can be negotiable, and you have to have that conversation with yourself. What is negotiable for me? What am I willing to forego, sacrifice this month or some months until I really can afford it? And once you identify those things, then I think you're in a good space, because you would not start looking at it. You wouldn't look at it as a sacrifice. You would actually look at it as you doing yourself, your future self, a favor. You are rewarding your future self when you take some, you reduce your spending in certain areas where you can. So that's the first place to start. Now, I do acknowledge that there's some situations, somebody might be watching the same film. I am stretched to the limit. And if you are stretched to the limit and you still can manage and do things the way you're doing things, that's a great space to be in. It's not the space you want to be in, but you're certainly not in a space where you don't know where you're at and you don't know what you're spending. Once you've moved past the budgeting and you say, well, okay, fine, this is my budget, it'll probably take you 4 to 6 months to actually stick to your budget and get it right. So don't be disappointed if you didn't hit the budget this month and next month. It's not about your personal finance. Is really not about perfection. It's really about how you're progressing. So if you don't hit it this month, next month, at least you didn't hit it. Sometimes you're in the dark.
Yeah.
You definitely want to be able to now start saying, well, okay, I need to have some funds for emergency, right? If it's when you figure out what this, your budget is like, and you do have some extra money. Experts will tell you it's 4 to 6 months. Again, don't let that intimidate you. You're not going to have 4 to 6 months immediately set aside. And even when I tell people, sometimes I think coming out of the pandemic, someone said to me, Philip, I don't even think 6 months will have given me peace of mind. I think I need 12 months. That's a personal decision, right? But experts will say 4 to 6 months of what your expenses would be. And you'll be surprised. Your mental health is you wouldn't be worrying. Once you get to a point where you have emergency money, you know that you can, because something is going to happen. People always think it's never going to happen. It's not about if, it's when it's going to happen, and you want to be in a position to not just necessarily help you, but you may have to assist loved ones, people that you care about most. And so it's budgeting emergency funds. Then you start setting very smart financial goals for down the road. You definitely want to be managing your debt. You understand how a credit card works, understand any loan that you have. Are there any hidden fees? How can I get the best out of this loan and not necessarily the financial institution getting the best out of me? And that the debt management really works with you understanding, well, if there is an opportunity to prepay and how you can get your interest down so that you pay less interest. And then you start, when you master those 4 pillars, then you could start thinking about this. And, it's probably I should be investing either in the stock market or a mutual fund. But that's really, the place where you really start off is having a real, very clear understanding of what your monthly expenses are. And that's how you work towards seeing what your big picture about your whole financial situation is.
That's so true.
Very
Because you
useful.
see that budget? Mm-hmm. What I try to do with my clients is budget for transformation.
Yeah.
So, yes, people say that they're stretched, but when you begin to itemize, which a lot of us don't do, what did I spend on today? If you go home and take out all the bills from all the places you've been, you realize you spent a lot more than you thought you did.
I do that all the
Half
time.
the things you spent money on, you didn't have to spend money on.
And it's usually food.
A lot of times,
Yeah.
well, hush, I'm a foodie. Half the time. Yeah, and then sometimes we could cut back on our market bill. We talk about planting stuff.
Yes.
There's so much that we can do. And once you are in a hole, which I've been in, you can find things that you can live without. You could probably live without cable TV. That's $600 and something that you could, it's temporary. It's not going to be forever.
So true.
If you drive, the cost of gasoline, you could probably ask a neighbor to ride with them twice a week. You have to find ways to spend less than you're earning.
Yes.
So that you can pay towards debt, you can put towards that 6 months saving. Because you can't find it anywhere. Nobody's going to give you any free money.
That is true.
So if this is where you're at, and this is a limited amount that you have to find a way to to spend less than that, whatever that income package is, because whatever it is, it's a blessing, and you have to be a good steward of it. Because that's the first principle that they talk about in the Bible about stewardship.
Right.
God honors that. He sees what you're going through. And if you could just make those adjustments, it's not forever. And sometimes we don't want to be uncomfortable at all. We must be the happiest people in the world every day. We must have macaroni salad. We have to have stew chicken, stew pork.
Oh, no.
You can't.
I have decided, like, just a simple thing that I did, I stopped buying meat. So I will only eat meat if I'm out, or if the kids come over, I will cook meat for them.
Our parents did that.
Yeah, I love, because I did a detox last year, the year before, and I said, but hey, the meat mouth could actually live without meat, because it didn't include meat in that in that diet, right? And it was just about having your greens and having your peas. I love a lentil soup you hear. So I just found that these are the things that I live on.
We can adjust.
And it helped me lose a little weight too.
We
so
can adjust.
But
it's just hard for some people to think.
It is.
Oh my God, they're suffering. You're not.
Like, I can't tell you the last time I took a trip somewhere, but I'm like, you know what, it's fine, because it's just for now. I don't feel comfortable taking a trip somewhere, finding money to take a trip or to play mass, because I love these things. I love carnival, but I'm not seeing myself doing that, because I said, to me, that's a reward.
That's a tremendous sacrifice.
Yeah, to me, that's a reward to myself for my hard work. Yes, I do work hard, but there are other things that I can do that I reward myself with.
But what I tell a lot of people too is sometimes we think that, but the reason budgeting is such a bad word is because they max out every cent and there's no room for fun. But I tell my clients, budget for play.
Yeah.
Because as an adult, you will not enjoy any aspect of your life. You will not enjoy working. You will not enjoy taking care of your children. You will not enjoy anything
if you don't have some recreation. Correct.
So you need to invest in play. And play could be a picnic in the gardens, you know.
Exactly.
Play could be walking around the savannah and drinking a coconut water with your besties who's laugh plenty, you know. You have to.
We are always at each other's houses because we're like,
let's
somebody brings something, we chip up so that we know.
Potluck dinner. Let's just budget for that.
And I think those are the best lines, by the way. But you raised the point about the budget, and I mean, I do that all the time, that budgeting, because I like to see where I'm going and how I'm spending and stuff like that. Because as I said too, this is not forever. Although not forever, lasting around longer. But I said, you know what? Everything has its timing. And I have to buff myself every month, say, Eileen, you didn't have to do this, you didn't have to do that. But then, when all your shoes dry rot in your cupboard, every other month I buy a pair of shoes. I said, I work hard, and every other month I'm buying myself a pair of shoes. I'm not going to buy the shoes like how I used to buy it before. It's no longer the $700 pair. I'm going to the store and buying the $200-$300 pair, but it is what it is. But it's still nice. But it's never been about brands and stuff for me anyway. But the part with living with what you have, God sees what you have, and you're living within that. Where do you find money to save? Because somebody was telling me the other day, you must save. Even if you're making $2,000 a month, save 20. Or save a 200. And oftentimes people will say, I'm sure both of you would have heard that before. People will say, oh God, I can't do that this month.
Well, I try to hide the savings inside of the insurance premium so that they forget that it's there.
Okay.
Because they just pay the premium every month.
Right.
And sometimes, like what happened to one of my clients who's a single mother during COVID, she called me. She said, and because people never remember what I sold them, right? They just buy it because they trust me. She said, but you didn't tell me something about some savings on my policy. I said, yes. She says, well, the contract ended and I have to get some money. How much money do I have in it? So I told her. She said, all is mine?
Gosh.
I said, yes. I said, but I'm not giving you all. How much you want now?
Yes.
And that's how she survived, but she forgot.
Yeah, but that's a good way to save,
indeed. And that's sometimes
indeed.
what you need to do with
all right.
some of the,
Because I oftentimes find that, for me, sometimes I'm like, I want to save $500 a month. So I try to put it away. Somebody was telling me the other day, put that away first. Put that away so that this is what you have to work with. Right? Pay yourself first. And I'm like, I like to pay bills. I've always been like that. Not that I like to pay bills, but I like to pay my bills and know that I don't have that stress on my mind. So as soon as I get paid, the first thing I do is in my budget. Those are the first items in my budget. So maybe I should change up the lineup a little bit.
The first line item in your budget should be yourself, right? That it should be you. Because yes, I'll tell you why, right? So remember, you're a big business. You're the business, and like in a normal business, what they have all their policies. What they're going to do when they make profits, and that's how properly run business. They have a policy for when they make this cash. This is what they do. This is what they do. So you have to figure out or ask yourself, what's your business policy for you when you get paid or when you get income, and that really should be top priority. And it's interesting how you say the stress of, the thinking about the bills, and, basically what you're doing is you are thinking about everybody else. You're paying the light bill, the water bill, and you're paying everybody else, because one man's income, one's individual's income is someone else's spend. So you're giving the business their money to do what they have to do and run their business. But you have to think about you. And the first pay should be, whether it's $20 or $200, whatever it is that you can put towards, for the future, for your savings, whether it's emergency or to begin to start investing. You have to think about yourself first, because that's how you'd be in a position not only to help yourself, but to help everybody else that is relying on you, that you care about. So it should be the first line item in your budget on the spreadsheet should be you saving.
Yeah, because I'm a very visual person, huh? So seeing that first, it might actually encourage me to put aside the money to save rather than have the rent and all of the utility bills and grocery. Oh God, and the car. You see that car? I say, you something else, Well, I call the car red woman.
You're looking for trouble.
I say, girl, as soon as you know I get in money, you want it. Sorry to the red ladies out there, I was just kidding, right? Oh gosh, but poor Becky, and I said, but I was talking to her the other day, and I said, Bex, you're a good car, I mean,
That's the
thank
language
you.
you have to use. You have to watch what you
thank
say.
you. I said, I know that I haven't been treating you the way that I'm accustomed to. I said, but you're so good. You still get me to work before 6 o'clock in the morning because I would rather not have to take public transportation. And plenty times the thought was to sell the car so I'll have that money to pay off some bills. And I'm like, well, how are you getting to where you're getting to? How are you going to get the children to and from school and all of that? So I was like, no, you can't sell the car. I would love to upgrade, but I can't afford a new one right now. So I was like, you know what? We will fix Becky. She's been the old faithful. She's part of the family, our DNA. And so she will stick around.
Priorities are important. A new car may not necessarily be a good thing.
Exactly.
In this season.
But that visual that you were talking about there, Phil, in terms of paying yourself first, I really like that part of it because it really does encourage, and I hope that the audience is taking heed of that if you're not already doing that, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can make ends meet with what little we have. Yes, we want to be able to do extra stuff, but it's sort of difficult to do that right now. Mm-hmm. But weather the storm and we'll be able to make it through.
But one of the things I've learned, in my own journey with money, which has been a really treacherous one, because I've always been a risk taker. So ever since I came out of university, I knew I didn't want to be in corporate Trinidad.
Right.
I had no desire to get a job. I don't know where I got that from, but that's just how I'm
what did you study?
wired. Economics and management. Yeah.
Okay, right.
I always wanted to do my own business.
Right, okay.
But in my zeal to do business, I chose sometimes business partners that weren't the best in terms of character. So I lost a whole lot of money, many times over. And then I decided to go into sales after 2 years of weighing the options because my daughter was by then 2 and I wanted to afford a particular quality of input into her life, which was salary at the time. I was in corporate Trinidad at that point. It would not have been able to afford it. So I took the risk, I took the leap of faith. I said, I could sell anybody. Yeah, right. And I went through what I think was the most difficult phase of my life in sales, because selling is, if you try to be too intellectual as I'm sometimes in my head too much, it's not what works. You have to really be it's a hard thing. And when you have bills to pay and you have a daughter to feed and you're a single parent, your heart is going like
Yes,
this.
oh my gosh, yes.
So a lot of times I talked myself out of the sale because I'm so anxious for the commission. You're not thinking about the job that you're doing.
The actual process, yeah.
Honey, it was horrible. So the first couple of years I floundered, I had rent to pay, I had car to pay, and I actually had a really nice car at that point in time that I could barely afford then. And I had to sell it. So I had to adjust. And you feel as if you're failing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it came to a point where I had to sit down and say, okay, Lord, you need to tell me what I'm not doing here. What is it? Because I think I was not extravagant, I was not wasting money, whatever. And then some principles began to be revealed to me, which I began to apply simply. And one of the things I was not doing was putting God first. So you see where Phil said, pay yourself? God said to me, pay me first. Then take care of your family, which is you and the bills and the child and the whatever and the play that I try to tell people about. And then the 20% in savings and investments so that you can invest in whatever next you want to do.
Right.
Because I've always wanted to do a business, but you have to have some capital. The bank ain't lending you a cent unless you have skin in the game. So you have to have that money set aside. And where do you put it? So I began to look at it 10%, and then 70%, and then 20% savings and investment, which I try to keep now. And it's hard because sometimes you put the money in the savings, and like you see, something happens and the car part is $15,000, and you have to dip into the savings. Thankfully, if you have it, you can.
Yes.
So it's fluid, but if you try to keep that construct and always be looking to see where you could cut that 70% down and live with a little less than that, so you have a little extra to put into the savings.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of, it's a shifting dynamic.
You make me jump there, right? So here it is. If my mother was looking at this podcast, or any member of my family would say, boy, you're supposed to pay the God first. You know that, I teach you that. Right? I do agree with that 100%. I just want to say that I do.
Yeah.
You always put God first. That is absolutely.
Because the word says that if you don't do that, your seed is cursed,
That's true.
Some people will have a challenge identifying with that, right?
I know a lot of people don't see that, but I'm telling you what worked for me.
As I oftentimes tell people, everybody's journey in life is different.
Exactly.
And we can't tell people where to be and what to believe at some point in time.
Yeah, but you see, even that, sometimes it may not be tithes in a church, but it might be giving to the needy.
Of course. I didn't even think about tithes in the church when you said
business.
that,
You're giving God the
that was the furthest thought for my mind, to be honest.
When you help
because
poor people,
that is where my mind was.
And we like to think about rich people, how they get all that money. They give.
Yeah. Because I oftentimes
give.
say, I may not have the money to give, but I have
the time, the resources, the support.
I have the support. Yeah. I will sit down and give people a good word.
That's your tithe.
Yeah. So that's another thing that we have to recondition our minds into thinking that everything is not about the money.
All kinds of other ways. I went to a school in Tobago on Monday morning to speak to the Form 4s and 5s. I think they were just that, and they had some primary school children. And it's understood that the school has issues, the children have issues. And we took a flight, we went there 7 o'clock in the morning, we stayed there all day. And when I was coming back home, I said, Lord, I had so much work to do that I didn't do that day. And I had to slap myself and say, no, this is how you give.
Right.
This is how you give.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Phil, when I look at your podcasts, your episodes, and your nuggets sometimes, it's very hardcore finance, right? Sometimes, I have to admit, sometimes I was like, what are you talking about now? Simply because, of course, that's not the industry that I belong to. And I want to be able to say, well, okay, I could understand this, and how does it apply to me as an individual? Because sometimes I think when you talk about the stock market prices, I said because I don't interact with the stock market and that kind of thing, it seems far-fetched for me at times. I'm pretty certain for many others who will feel as though, oh gosh, this is for people who know about that. But it doesn't affect our individual lives. It does. So shed some light on what Fill the Gap does in terms of bringing that awareness to your audience.
Yeah, definitely. So, and exactly what you described is what I always want people to feel. So it's the complex things, the things that seem complex. I try my best to dissect it. And I also let people know because, but when you hear investing and you think about the stock market, see how you said it sounds far-fetched. So there's a lot of mystery around the stock market and how it works. And in general, people might know, well, this is some place where people go to buy and sell shares. But I always want to let people know that you can invest. The situation you are in right now may not allow you to invest. So let's say you have high credit card debt, or your financial situation is not where you want it to be. So maybe now is not the time for you to be investing. But the reason why investing, I remind people that they can invest is because investing is not necessarily just only investing in the stock market. There are other financial vehicles, other financial products or avenues to have indirect access to the stock market, like mutual funds. There are also some insurance products that will give you indirect access to the stock market or to the fixed income or bond market.
Right.
And those avenues are lots of times is the best place or great place for a new investor. Why? Because it's accessible or affordable. It's not like the big lump sum you have to put. So it's affordable. So there are mutual funds that you can invest as little as $100, and you have access. You have indirect access to the stock market. So not to take anything for granted, a mutual fund. Think of a basket of fruits, but in this case, it's a basket of financial assets like stocks and bonds, and it's pooled together. So if we were in a mutual fund, our money would be pooled together, and we have an expert money manager that they call a portfolio manager, doing all the work behind the scenes to do the research and ensure that they're making the best decision for us to reach our financial goals, depending on what our goals are. So some people may be conservative, so you don't want to be in aggressive type mutual funds. So different mixes, different blends. Somebody might like the bailout plan, somebody might spice it up and put pepper or whatever. So there are different types of mutual funds to meet different needs. And as I said, you can start with as little as $100. So think about your dollar. If you had $1, it will be split over local companies on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, some regional companies within the Caribbean, and international companies in the US, like say Apple and Facebook and Google, who have access to these types of stocks via a mutual fund. The accessibility, as I said, is because it's affordable. So that's a great place to start, because if you have $100, you can start a mutual fund and you can have access to the stock market. And then eventually over time, if your financial situation changes, then you could start investing in the stock market. And somebody might say, well, Phil, I wouldn't know what stock to invest in and how to do this. But there are individual investment advisors. There are also there are brokerage firms that will give you advice. So a brokerage firm is really just the middleman between you and the stock market, and you pay them a commission. That's the way you get direct access, if it is you want to invest on the stock market. Or someone who is knowledgeable and will give you investment advice. So don't ever get into any financial product or anything that you are not sure about. It's very important to ask questions to an insurance agent or to any sales representative that's selling you a mutual fund. Anybody's telling you to buy stocks. You want to know that this person is qualified. They know what they're talking about, so that your money is not jumping up, right? So the worst thing that you could do is say somebody tell you, boy, your money could double overnight, and put your money here. This is what's going to happen. Anytime you hear that, that's a red flag. If somebody can't tell you what asset is backing or driving that fantastic return, they cannot break that down for you. That is a problem. They can't say, well, listen, this product is invested in bonds or stocks or real estate, and this is what the return is, and generally this is what you should expect over time. They cannot answer that intelligently and very succinctly for you. They're dishonest. If the person says, listen, because sometimes somebody may not know exactly what is in a financial product or to break it down. It doesn't mean that it's a bad product. It just means they don't have the information. So the person should be able to say, listen, you know what? I don't have the information. I'm going to get back to you with that too. You could cut them some slack. You could give them a guide. That's somebody being honest and saying, listen, I don't have the information, but I promise you I'm going to get it back to you in an email. So you have the information. If you don't have that, be very careful. So I know it's enticing and people want to double their money overnight, and you think about that's not investing, and that's not what that's never how it would be. It's never ever going to be like that. It's never ever going to be double and triple your money overnight. It's not. Everybody has those dreams, right? But be very, very, very careful, because that's very, 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 very risky.
And I think
the issue of the person's age is also important in terms of whether you can recover from high risk investment if it goes low, because you have to tell people what the downside of the investment can be.
Yeah.
And if you're an older person, you may not have time to recover.
Keep everything above board and be open about it.
It's about what's best for that individual.
Yes.
You really have to, people have to get, and people need to ask hard questions.
But this is the thing with asking, you ask from a place of knowing. Correct. So this is why you have podcasts like Phil Zone, where you're getting all of these nuggets. And I think even though you don't have the finance right now to invest on all of these different things, I really think that it's good to start a culture.
Yes.
To start to speak the language, so that you would know when you start making the money, you would know where you're going and make wise decisions and ask the right questions, as Phil was just saying there, knowing how to ask the right questions. So it's never too late to start being financially literate.
And it's important to teach our children.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Financial literacy from early too.
So do either of you do stuff with like teenagers and stuff?
I don't, but I would like to.
That would be great.
I have a seminar that my husband and I did. We did a few of when we want to do some more, called Melangen on Money, which is a real conversation about money. So we want to target different segments of the society, and we may do something for younger people.
Very, very interesting, yes. And Phil, what
knowledge
about you?
Is power.
Yeah, I've been invited to go to secondary schools. Most of the times it's like 6 formers, 5th formers, sometimes 4th formers. But
and ready to leave.
Yeah, so me personally, I don't have an active program, but if I am called upon, like I've received requests, and not only schools, sometimes in 1 or 2 communities,
right?
Or just so when I get a request, I do. It has always been a desire for me, and I've just had a challenge in terms of just really materializing that and making it happen. I've always had that desire. Listen, how can you make an impact, particularly for younger people? Because when you start developing a healthy relationship with money from an early age, it sets the tone. And I recognize that. So both of my parents were financial professionals, and one in the insurance industry, one in the regulatory in the central bank. And even with them being in finance, they really didn't have very direct conversations as Phil. This is what you do. So even so that I'm saying, growing up in a home like that, so I'm not telling you that they obviously I think I looked at decisions that they made, and you could pick up, well, okay, this is what you do, but to actively have a conversation. Some kids may not pick up, some kids may. So it's important to have that conversation from early. Honest conversations too, why we can't afford this, why, this is why things are the way they are now. This is how you can make extra money. This is how money is earned. This is how it works in the world. So once kids understand that early o'clock, it really lays the foundation for a healthy relationship with money and just making smarter decisions overall.
Yeah.
I was blessed to have that.
Oh, awesome.
My mother is my hero. She used to work for $80 a month. That's to tell you how old I am, right, Phil? And she got paid fortnightly, and she wrote a budget. And she would sit me down, and while she's writing it, she would have me look at what we can afford to buy. Wow. So we used to go to JP Supermarket in St. James together. Right. And I would hold a bag of groceries, she would hold one. And every one of the 2 fortnights, I would get one comic book, which I used to love to buy, Jughead and them.
All right, Archie and them.
And one pack of bubblegum that was they were the hugest chewing gums I'd ever seen. Sometimes I'd get the book and the gum, sometimes I'd get the gum alone, but she would watch me one eye and tell me what we spoke about home. That's what we get in, right? And she bought her house, her first home. You hear what I'm telling you? I was 6 when she started doing that budgeting thing. When I passed common entrance at 11, which was common entrance back then,
all of us here, I think we would have done common entrance, right?
She bought her first house for $35,000 3-bedroom upstairs house. And I don't know how she did it.
Wow.
She bought me a piano for my 8th birthday. I don't know how she did it. But she would religiously be buying X amount of groceries. She's saving X amount. She paid her. She was a genius.
Wow.
And she's still like that at 83.
That's really, really cool because the other thing is, the way that we show, and to Phil's point with, showing the children from pretty young, because, I talk about, I'm very open with my children, sometimes to a fault.
Yes.
Because they'll be like, oh, God, Mom, we didn't need to hear that.
Too much information.
yeah, but they need to know shots.
Yeah.
And I just found that teaching them that, because I noticed it in both of them, they do budgeting more than me.
It'll become natural.
If they know that, okay, I have something to fix on the car or whatever, they'll be like, okay, Mommy, but so then we can't go 5 Islands this weekend. Then I say, well, no.
Duh.
And I love the fact that they're so understanding.
Yes.
I say, because how we reach 5 Islands if we can't work it? So
And they have a good life still, even if they can't
do.
go 5 Islands. So it's
They
not
do.
like they're suffering.
they do. And I love, and I don't leave out the opportunity to let my children know that I thank them for being so understanding. Because you know how some children could be, very, you don't do this for me, and all of that. Similar to you all in my household, my mom was in the insurance industry as well. She was the breadwinner in our family. My father was around, yes, but she was around. And and I just found that we didn't have that sort of literacy, those conversations in
They
our
didn't do
household.
it in an obvious way.
You're right.
They're too
But
busy
Mommy would
just
just
trying to put
make
food on the
things
table.
happen.
Yes.
She would make things happen. And I'm like, how do you do it?
Yes.
Looking at my grandmother, oh my gosh, she was the one. That one? That Estelyn Bastian? Oh, Jesus. She would make sure that everything is in place, right? Financially. My grandfather, of course, was the breadwinner. She was the housekeeper at the time. But she used to make sure that she knew how his money was spent.
Exactly.
Because it's the neighborhood has to get this. And this is not just for the family, yeah? The neighborhood has to get it. The church has to get it. And all of this help. And again, they prospered as a result of helping community.
That blessing.
Sure. And so all of this is intertwined to see that finances are not just about, we can't separate it and say, okay, because you're not financially stable right now, your life is over.
No, it's not.
Once you're honest with your situation, once you are honest with the way that you're going to, the steps that you're going to take, Phil shared some of those with us earlier on in the conversation. Once you're honest with yourself and you will take those steps, you know that you're well on your way. Find your purpose as well.
Yes.
Oftentimes we are so caught up in working that we don't understand, because I do have some friends who are in multiple businesses. Nothing is wrong with that. But you have to put aside the time for you and your family. If you know what is one of my pet peeves, to hear people say, oh God, too much work, I'm tired, I didn't have time for myself. I said, well, make it. Take the time for yourself. There are days, it could be a Monday even. I come home from radio. If I am not feeling to do anything, that's my mental health day today. Today is my mental health day. I just feel like watching mindless television, but I know I have to bring up the rear for the other few days in the week that I didn't do the stuff that I want to, to work on towards what I need to do. At first, it started to feel bad because I came out of an 8-to-4 job scenario and not having a health plan, not having all of the perks that I enjoyed, and then having to fend for yourself. Like literally, because becoming an entrepreneur is a whole ball game in itself. It's something that I saw that they actually have a degree on that now. Mm-hmm. You don't just choose to become an entrepreneur. No. So every day I ask myself the question, am I cut out for this? Is this for me? Do I need a manager? Do I need an agent to handle my stuff for me? Because
you need an accountant.
Or an accountant, because I'm wondering, an entrepreneur is not something that you just get up in the morning and because you didn't have a job, you just decide to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't work like that. So it's a question that's still on the table for me, even though I live in it, but it's like, I don't know, sometimes people have offered to say, well, do you have a manager? Do you have an agent? I was like, what a fancy. I say, who paying you? So
it's important to have.
Financial literacy is what is important, as opposed to financially stable. We all want to be financially stable. And if you're not at this point in time as a result of the pandemic, as a result of whatever circumstance you may have faced in your life that literally knocked you off your feet and the air out of your body, like what happened with me, it's look for the opportunity in every situation, wouldn't you say,
Yes.
Madienne?
Yes, I think the recession that is pending is going to force us to find creative ways to make more money as well.
Yeah.
Because it's likely that the salaries we are currently earning may not stretch to reach all the expenses that we have. And there's something about talents. I go back to the Bible. There's something about using the talent. In that case, it referred to a measure of money that the person was supposed to invest and double.
Right.
But it is also can be applied to your skills and your giftings, which you are supposed to take responsibility for.
Yep.
Invest and create something out of it. And so many of us have gifts and talents that are dormant, have been dormant. We forgot that we have them because we're so
afraid
busy
to take a chance.
Yes, and the fear, and so it's really something that I think as a culture, we need to begin to get a little more comfortable exploring, taking the quiet time to figure out what is this baby I have inside of me that I need to boost.
Yeah.
And do it.
Share it with the world.
Do it badly to start with if that's the way it's going to be,
Oh my
and
God,
learn,
yes.
grow. Embarrass yourself a little bit. We take life so seriously that we don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to fail. We don't want to fall. But that's how we learn.
But I'm thankful that this is how most conversations are going these days, where people are actually telling you to fail forward.
Yes.
Fail.
Yeah.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to say, well, okay, I messed up this time, but let me see how I could try. So I love that this is where community is going now in terms of the conversations that we're having. And you don't have to feel so badly that you're not at a particular place in your life right now. Phil, is there anything that you want to add to this conversation from a financial perspective for our audience?
Yeah, I'm listening. I think I just want to remind people it really isn't all about the money, right? So I know when you look at my page, yes, much of it is economics and personal finance. But if your physical health is not in where it's supposed to be, you can't enjoy money. If your mental health is not where it's supposed to be, you can't enjoy the money that you have, right? So it's very important to have balance. Don't try not to come down on yourself too hard. So I'm not downplaying anyone's feelings. You would not feel happy or excited about being in a financial situation that you don't want to be in, or that you want to be better. But it's important to just take a step back and really assess where you are and if things are really that bad, because it may not be that bad and you may be doing a lot better than you think. And if you're honest with yourself, that's a great space to be in. There is wealth in that, and there's future wealth generation in that. So, just don't come down on yourself too hard. I mean, things that you think are overly complicated and complex are not as complex as they should be. Your personal finance journey is unique to you. And it's not about perfection, it's about the direction that you're going in. So just keep pressing step by step, day by day. You will get there.
Stay present, take it step by step, and live day by day. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. I agree.
I feel like we're going to use that tomorrow on my radio show.
That's fine. That's okay.
Yes. We can
Tell them you got it from Phil the Gap. I'm joking.
But it's definitely about, as Madienne was just saying, start where you are, grow from where you are. Life is not over because you got a little shift. Maybe the shift in the shake-up that you got is for you and not against you. This was a lovely conversation on a Sunday morning. Thank you so much, Madienne and Phil, for sharing your expertise, sharing your advice as well, and both with me and, of course, the audience. And I have to say that hearing you all speak from your professional standpoint and knowing that majority of the things that you all spoke about have already implemented, I feel like $1 million. Pun intended. But
and when you do get the actual $1 million,
and when I get the actual $1 million plus,
right?
of course. And that's the next thing, because I remembered when I had my job and I was paying me pretty well. I was really into investments and stuff.
You will be.
There was a whole club of us and we were into investments. I was like, and then what happened is that you had to use all the savings to pay off the loans and
you had
whatever.
it.
So
Yeah.
I am saying thank God that I had
Yes, it's
those
important,
savings.
yeah.
And it's just about starting back. And I said, hey, when you start back, there's a good opportunity there to do things differently and it could actually be better.
Yes.
So for anyone out there who's really, really feeling a little bit downtrodden because you feel like if you're broke, you're not broke. As Phil said, you're broke if you're not acknowledging the fact that you have a financial situation that you need to deal with and that you really, really have to put steps in place to work towards that. Don't pretend, and I'm not talking about pretending as in, you still have to look good and smell good,
Yes,
okay?
please.
That's important.
Yes,
That's
please.
important. But don't go borrowing money to live a certain lifestyle that you cannot afford and put yourself in a further rut. Start from where you are, acknowledge where you are, and see yourself grow in the way that you're supposed to subsequent. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I want to thank Lawrence Fashions for outfitting me today, as usual. And again, to Extocracy Photos for filming for us for this beautiful podcast, and to MXD, Andre Stewart at MXD for editing. Thank you so very much to Madienne Mohan and to Philip
Mahon.
Williams. Where I get Mohan from?
I don't know.
Because I'm trying to Douglarize the nation. Oh gosh, thank you. You didn't know, you didn't listen to the episode with my dyslexia. Okay.
No.
I always mix things up.
It's all good.
Mahon. Thank you, Madienne, so
You're
much
welcome.
for sharing
It was a
your
pleasure.
beautiful thoughts
It really was.
with us. And Phil, thank you so very much. I encourage people to look at Fill the Gap, the podcast. A lot of very, very helpful nuggets you can get there as you try to shape your financial future. And I say to you all again, cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.